Hey everybody, welcome to a special 3-part miniseries of Surface Level, curious conversations about the Black and queer experience. I'm one of your hosts, Tony, and today I'm joined by Lala B. Zannell, Trans Justice Campaign Manager at the ACLU, Zach Stafford, journalist and co-host of Vibe Check podcast, and Kris Chessen, co-host of Bad Queers podcast. We're here to dive deeper into how politics impacts the daily lives of the queer community. What political issues hits home for you the closest?
Certainly healthcare. As someone who started a family, is looking to expand my family, the process it felt lonely with me and my wife, going through that process of trying to conceive process. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I remember when people used to call my phone, like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union are doing that with their child. A child cannot have surgeries. I said, pump your brakes. Mm-hmm. No doctor is approving a child to have a surgery. Like, hello, wake up. A trans person who is a child doesn't get to bypass that process.
I remember when I worked at Grindr once. When I was there, a big thing we worked on was, giving access to HIV testing on the app and also allowing people to choose if they wanted to display their status. Something we noticed really quickly was, a lot of people that look like us that were on the app, people just assumed they were HIV positive, and people would talk to them in these really awful, violent ways.
This is The Personal is Political, Part 1. Hey, what's up? Welcome, y'all.
Hey.
I'm really excited to have you all here. I know everyone is coming from all over the country, and so I'm just glad that we can all join today and be here in one space. So before we get into the conversation here, I want to do a little bit of a setup and explain the series that we're doing here. So the title, The Personal is Political, comes from a famous 1970 essay by the American feminist Carol Hanisch, who argued that the personal experiences, especially for women, are often shaped by the power dynamics in society. So today we're going to take that foundation and broaden it to include the experiences of our community. So in part 1 of our miniseries, we're going to focus on issues around healthcare, but before we go deeper, let's start on the surface level with an icebreaker. So I want to know who on this panel remembers Schoolhouse Rock?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Right? So for anyone who doesn't, Zach, could you give a quick description
of the song, like, I'm just a bill.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't sing very well,
So
but yes, it was a cartoon show.
Basically, it's an edutainment moment, and it's like animated shorts, I want to call them, and it's all about like how the government operates and works, and how laws get passed and all of that good stuff. And so the name of this icebreaker is called I'm Just a Bill.
I'm psychic, I knew it.
You are psychic, you were spot on. And so I'm gonna name like a few fun, fictitious pieces of legislation, and I want you to tell me which bills you would sign instantly if you had unanimous support.
Okay.
So, the first one, the unlimited free travel anywhere bill, or the ability to speak any language instantly bill? Which would you sign immediately?
And only one.
Only one, and that's a hard one, and I made these tough.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Oh, hands down, fly wherever I want. Save me the freaker flyer miles, but I need an amendment. You need to add fur babies too, because I travel with my fur babies.
Yes. And you said you'll use the Google Translate and all that for
all that, yeah, old school. We get the
Have your
maps
good
and
old
do what we
Rosetta
gotta do.
Stone.
Yeah.
How about you, Kris?
Same. I was like, oh, language, that's so nice. But for me, selfishly, yeah, just unlimited travel.
The travel,
Yeah.
unlimited travel, free travel anywhere.
Yeah, I would also sign this bill into law and add kind of like an amendment to it that says also business class travel is a part of this. The girls need to lay down. They need a nap.
Absolutely.
I love that. The ability to speak any language instantly kind of is appealing to me. Mm-hmm. So just to be different, I'm going to go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, because like if I can go anywhere in the world and speak the language and have the native tongue.
But what's the point of being able to speak a language if you can't get there for free?
Well,
Like,
maybe
I'm
I'll get your buddy pass.
You're my buddy back.
Oh, yes. Yes.
The next
Yes.
one. All right.
Pass
The
the
mandatory 3-day weekend bill, or the every month includes a bonus paycheck bill. So a three-day weekend bill, or you want a bonus check once a month?
I'm going to say bonus check for now, because if we were doing a 3-day weekend bill, I would need them to also make it illegal for weekend emails. Because, you know, sometimes these jobs play that game. They're like, you're off on Friday, but you start getting emails.
Right,
So
right.
I want the money.
How about you, Lala?
I think it depends. So like when we get paid, the free pay, that one check, is it tax free? I have questions. I don't want Uncle Sam coming to get the money back later for it.
Is it tax free?
So if it's tax free, I would have been that. Yes, I would be happy to take the check because I work weekends anyway. When you're an activist, like when are you really off?
Yeah.
But so the extra check, as long as it's tax free, is appealing to me.
I love that. She said when you're an activist, every day is work. How about you?
And with that clarifying question, tax-free, give me my money.
Tax free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I would want that bonus check once a month as well, because it's along with that first one with traveling anywhere or speaking the native tongue. I think that's a nice, if I can get this bonus check once a month, that'll be cute. The next one, the free concert tickets for life bill or the VIP access to every major event bill?
Does the VIP access get you into the concert? Can it be? Is that the loophole?
Well, it's every event. So VIP access to every major event.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay.
That's me.
I felt like you would.
Yeah.
I felt like you would.
That's a read.
How about you, Lala? Free concert tickets for life or VIP access?
I mean, in this generation, music is very like wah 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 half the time. So events, I'd rather be able to choose to go to whatever events I want to go to. I choose events, most definitely.
Free concerts for life.
Yeah, VIP and comfort go hand in hand. And I'm getting older. I need seating and be able to move around and just, treat myself. So it has to be VIP.
Yeah, I think for me it is the VIP at every major event, because whenever Beyonce does an event, it's major to me, and I need to be
1000%.
VIP for that event. Yes. All right, let's see. We have two more. The everyone gets a personal chef bill or your home is always spotless without cleaning bill? Now, the cleaning.
Yeah, because the personal chef would be great, but then I don't know. I want to be in control of my cooking, but clean everything up, spotless, love it. Yeah.
So you cook?
Yeah, I cook.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm moving in.
I love cooking too.
Yeah, I like cooking.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Lala?
I do love cooking a lot, but I would love to have a personal chef because my life is Zoom calls. I can just text them after 1 o'clock Zoom. I want the smoothie. I want the salad. I want the thing. It would save me time to do other things. So I think I'm the personal chef, but I do love cooking my own food. I love to cook.
Yeah, I feel the same way as both of you, but the personal chef is so chic. As long as they're making a lot of money and they're comfortable, so chic. Like, oh, welcome to my home. Here's my chef. Like, come on.
For me, as a person who doesn't really cook like that, I'm taking the personal chef. I need that. I like to clean, actually. That's therapeutic for me. So I put things back in their place and have someone else in the kitchen doing the cooking. All right, last one. The free Wi-Fi everywhere bill or the no traffic ever again bill?
No traffic, sorry. I'm from LA. That visceral reaction to hearing the word traffic, I would love to move through the world without having to wait. And I'll use my phone for the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah, and because where you live, there's a lot of traffic.
So much. And New York also has a lot of traffic. We in LA get a lot of shame from New Yorkers about our constant traffic, but getting from Brooklyn to Manhattan is traffic oriented. The sea is down, all that. So if all of that is gone and you just get places easily, I'd love that.
Yeah. How about you, Lala? You taking the Wi-Fi for free? Wi-Fi everywhere, mind you. So it's just or no traffic ever again.
No traffic. I think, I mean, especially with the events, like who wants to get to the event late? I got the free VIP events and I'm late.
With no traffic.
Stuck in traffic? No.
That's true.
Traffic. Yeah, I just wanted to coast on through.
Exactly.
I don't drive as much now, working remote. I've been through years of traffic. I'm like a traffic veteran, so I'm just like, I don't know. It doesn't bother me as much. So I'm gonna go with the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Any
I
and
like
everywhere,
that.
land,
I
sea,
like that.
space.
For me, it's the traffic, because unless I want to tell someone go play in traffic, kick rocks. But for me, I think the no traffic is something that I would love to just be able to get from point A to point B without the hassle. So thank you for
Yeah.
entertaining me with that little bit of,
Yeah,
that was a
that's
little bit
fun.
of
That was great.
fun to start us
I
off.
also had this thought as we finished that was, wow, we sound like billionaires right now.
Yeah.
Like, no traffic, a chef, go wherever I want, speak languages. Gosh, we are billionaires.
Yeah. So let's jump into our conversation around healthcare. And the first one that we're going to discuss is around abortion. And so people often associate abortion rights with women. And that's a natural thing to think about when you hear abortion. But it's also a big issue for the queer community. So I want to talk about why are abortion rights just as important to our community as it is for women?
I mean, I think at its basic level, abortion rights or reproductive justice is about bodily autonomy and not having governments dictate how you can use or what you do with your body. That is essentially a queer, issue, because queer people have always been policed through legislation, the police, et cetera. So we should all be showing up for reproductive justice just to kind of codify that we all should be allowed to do what we want with our bodies.
Right.
And then from a cultural standpoint, I remember, years ago, there was a documentary on Showtime that was like the real L Word. It was in Mississippi, I think. And that film changed my whole life in so many ways, because I had never thought about how queer women, specifically cisgender queer women, have higher needs for reproductive justice or abortions because of, when they were young in this one film about lesbians living in Mississippi, they're dealing with a lot of homophobia. And what we've seen with certain studies is that women dealing with homophobia will begin to try to, engage with high-risk sex behaviors to prove that they're not gay or to kind of try to not be gay. And abortion rates are really high for queer women in Mississippi specifically. And they had a greater need for needing just, basic healthcare services across the board, because that is the state with the highest rate of queer women raising children in the country currently. So that's what I think a lot about lately.
Yeah, and to take a step back, who has children on the panel?
I do.
Okay.
2-year-old. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's about bodily autonomy. It's all of these things are intertwined. So abortion, reproductive rights, access to health care, and how we're treated. Like it starts with abortion, but we see that it is snowballed into other things. So it's not just abortion, and that bill and Hobbs' decision has affected so many other things and the fallout from it. So I think people are more aware now that it's not just about abortion. It's not just about women getting pregnant. It goes beyond that. There's already so many barriers we face as Black queer people, going to the doctor and, them being culturally competent. So it is, all these things are intertwined. These are all connected.
Yeah. Lala?
Also, I think it's important for us to remember, especially as queer people and as LGBTQ people, I think about when I was younger. I was 15 when I was trans, many moons ago, before all of this knowledge. And so there were many things about myself that I didn't know because there wasn't access to that. So I had a mindset of like, okay, women need abortion access, that's it. But as I grew and learned about my community and about my body and my health and things, that no, women don't have babies. People do. Yeah. And so we need to change our language and how we talk, that no, the idea that a woman needs an abortion or a woman has a child, no, people are able to bear children. And so we need to change that language and make it comfortable for people who may not be a woman or may not have those conventional ways to produce children, to have safe spaces to have those conversations, to get access to care without the judgment, without shame, without fear of going to do that. And also that Black women, particularly in Black communities as a whole, have not been able to have access to good health care or quality health care or access abortions. It was a thing of the past of like, they couldn't access it at all. And so like to see lots of white women so angry and upset, this has happening in every movement. People of color are always disproportionate by that. And then it's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It's been happening. So let's show up and change the language. And I think so many conversations, the language needs to be changed because we still use language of yesteryears that do not exist anymore.
I love the idea that we need to challenge people to continue their education. And when you're talking about language, that's a big thing, and how to use words. Like people just need to go back to school a little bit. And just on abortion, I found something, I think this came from ACLU, and it said that LGBTQ plus people have a greater risk of unintended pregnancy, partially because they're less likely to use contraceptives. And then also on another front, it talked about violence and that there are more LGBTQ plus people are more likely to have unwanted pregnancy due to violence. And so there's the topic is a big one. And when we talk about abortion, I think people can just broaden their views on what that actually means for our community. And so on to our next topic. This is another thing that has been really sensationalized in the media. Gender-affirming care for trans people has become just a hot topic and often spreading misinformation about gender-affirming care. So how has this affected healthcare for trans people and others?
I think it makes parents who are parents thinking going through this now that there's this big scare or that there's this big push for it, or that I think the big misconception that I remember when people used to call my phone like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union are doing that with their child. A child cannot have surgeries. I said, pump your brakes. No doctor is approving a child to have a surgery. Like, hello, wake up. A trans person who is a child doesn't get to bypass that process. I said, but what they're saying is that they're creating a safe environment for their child to affirm who they are through their name, through their expression, with parents supporting them and friends in their life supporting them and the school systems around supporting them, for them to come into their own, to figure out who they are. Me, as I said earlier, I transitioned very early on, and that was important to me. I look back at what youth have today. So when people say, how does that affect you? It affects me because I was a trans teen, and I wish I had a place to go to school to say, I am this, and this is how I feel, and I want to take blockers. There's also risk when you take hormones later in life. Like, I wish I was able to start earlier because I wouldn't have to be on them in my older years, and I wouldn't have to have girlfriends and friends of mine who had illegal silicone or other things happen to them because we felt that there was no other route. And so to let you know that trans folks are going to be trans whether you stop them with the medical procedures or not. That just shows the resistance of who we are, that we made it and found a way. And so I think that parents should just think and use logic. Like, it's not about surgeries. It's about creating a firm environment for people to express and have bodily autonomy over themselves, and the government should have no say-so in that at all, and that there's doctors and medical science that has proved otherwise. And so I think that's what happens. When you hear about it, it's like surgeries. It's like, stop, these are children. Ain't nobody mandating no child to have no surgery. Like, if you just stop and think yourself, like, why would you just let that? No, they're not doing that.
Right.
Like, you can go to your emergency room right now and ask the doctor, and any doctor go in there and say, I want to give my teenage child a breast augmentation. That doctor's gonna look at you like you're crazy. And call, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it was that ran so far, and people still would say it off their mouth that kids are getting surgeries. That is not true.
But see, that's the thing about it for me, is like, it's a fear mongering of it all, and it's the sensationalizing it on media. And when you constantly hear stuff like that, it upsets people, and people believe that stuff. And then they take that, and then it becomes this huge political thing. So that's what's really upsetting to me about it.
Yeah. And it's also, science is science, it's not politics. And what's been happening due to this hyper awareness of trans medical care and trans young people getting access to care, which has been saving lives and was on track to save even more lives, but now all these laws are taking place and stripping these rights away from people. And it's really, in a very real way, people are going to end up dead because of this, has made people not believe in science anymore. And that's a really dangerous world to live in when we start thinking that things that our doctors are saying, things that our researchers are finding aren't real. And that means that we're going to see a rise in the anti-vax movements and so much else as part of this fallout, because we've said, oh, that thing that we've believed in forever, that has helped us get to the place we are in society today, isn't real actually. Don't believe anything your doctor says. And now people aren't. And it's really dangerous.
Going back to the conversation around abortion, and it's linked directly to access to gender-affirming care. It says abortion access and access to a gender-affirming care are linked based on the belief of you are the author of your own life. Mm-hmm. And so no one gets to decide that for you but you. Yeah. So our next topic is around HIV stigma. And I would like us to discuss how has stigma around HIV been a barrier for presenting the spread of the virus. You know, there's so many people who just are afraid of the topic, and it prevents them from even taking care of their own health based on that fear or the stigma around it. So can we discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to our last question, like just seeing how misinformation works and how prevalent that stays, and how that can lead to, and has led to, the silence of folks who are living with HIV and living full lives with HIV, and the hesitancy within our community to move away from thinking that it's a gay disease and that it's just this one thing, or putting this deviant behavior on a virus that can affect it and has affected everybody in the community. Like, I think that's what scares me about how folks are thinking about gender-affirming care now, and seeing how, 20, 40 years later from HIV, how some of the same attitudes still persist, like, through generations, It's really scary, and we're seeing the effects of it because it's, still a taboo topic to talk about. Like, people don't want to talk about it. The silence is still there. The misinformation is still there, and,
Yeah. And I think, like, the misinformation, the silence, and the stigma can be deadly in their own right. I remember when I worked at Grindr once, which was very fun. But I'm
sure you have a lot of stories
I can tell people. But when I was there, a big thing we worked on was, giving access to HIV testing on the app, and also allowing people to choose if they wanted to display their status. And that has its own, complicated way in which it materialized itself. But something we noticed really quickly was, a lot of people that look like us that were on the app, people just assumed they were HIV positive, and people would talk to them in these really awful, violent ways, saying, like, why are you on this app? You're sick, you're not clean, all of these things. So, if someone was to test positive while being on Grindr, they would be like, well, these people are right. I am dirty. I am all of these bad things. And they weren't accessing care in a meaningful way, or reaching out, or even getting tested at all, because they were so afraid of the stigma of it all. So I think we as Black queer people just assume that we are HIV positive or will become HIV positive, and that changes how we even deal with our own healthcare navigation ourselves. And we're not talking about how you brought up that, like, living with HIV, you can have a beautiful, full life if you do get care. But what I've seen as a Black queer man is that because of the fear of it, you just don't engage, and you just kind of cover your ears. And that's really dangerous for us as a community. We have to talk about it.
Absolutely. Anything to add?
I think that there was two sides to it. I think it depends on where you're from and where you're at across the country, and even globally. You're able to access sexual health education or access to condoms or contraceptives differently than other people are. You're able to access education differently than other people. Like, we live in New York City, where there's a condom everywhere you go. There is people, it will always be an outreach worker telling you to get on PrEP, get on PrEP, get on PrEP. But I think that message sometimes to the youth gets it distorted sometimes. So you have youth like, oh no, Lala, I'm good, I'm on PrEP. That's amazing. Kudos. But also, you need to do your STI screenings.
Yeah.
And they miss the mark with that, because those can lead to dangerous things in the future. Because, and we need to stop saying people who are having sex is risky behavior. When your mom and dad was hooking up, you don't call it risky behavior. Because we're LGBT, we're calling it risk behavior. No, we're all at risk because we're all having sex, and we're all not educating ourselves. We're all not doing STI screenings. We're all not talking to our partners about, when's the last time you've been tested? Let's get tested together. Why are you scared to get tested? What's your fear around being tested? We're not talking about, what does it mean if one of us happens to become positive? What does it mean if I am positive and you're not positive and we're dating? Like, we go to the to the happy ending, but we're not good at having the educational piece, and that comes from depending on the regions where you're at. If you're in the South, if you're in the Midwest, your access to education or even contraceptives or preventatives are going to be very hard.
Yeah.
The access to HIV medication is higher depending on where you're at. And so I think that we're talking about it as just trying to get numbers of like, this is the highest number, this is the highest rate, it's the DEL, we're pointing fingers, but no, like, let's figure out where the pockets of the world need more medication advancements, need more education advancements, what is triggering these new higher rates, what is keeping it stagnant in certain areas, and how to get to preventatives, because we're seeing more rates of high STIs nowadays more than HIV. And we know in the South, that's happening to lesbian and bisexual women. And they like to think it's a gay or trans disease, but they forget women are really impacted by this as well, because they're having sex with each other too, and they're doing it by taboo, or they're sneaking doing it, or they don't have. So I think we need to really make it get back to education, like in schools. They're trying to take that away now, right? Yeah. And so like most kids learn that first time when you're a queer person, that first person you're with half the time, or something you've seen on YouTube, or something you've seen from a queer movie, or something you've seen in an X-rated film, let's be honest, right? And then you're like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do that. And then when you get there with that first time, it's nothing like you thought it was going to be. And you go with the person that you trust, like, okay, yeah, they convinced me and told me they was on PrEP, but you said, no, I want to make sure, let me see your charts, let me see that. Yeah. And so those in our community, it looks different for us, how we access love and relationships and sex education.
Yeah, I love what you said about normalizing the conversation and having real talk. People run away from real talk. It's a scary thing to be vulnerable, to share, information about yourself, to even inquire about the information. And a lot of how we talk about HIV and just sexual health and all of the above has a lot to do with how people navigate around it. And so that's another call to action for anyone watching this, is to normalize the conversation, have the conversation to begin with, and then keep having it. It's an ongoing conversation. And as someone who is HIV positive and has been living with it for over a decade at this point, like Zach said earlier, you can have a fruitful, full, healthy life. And I am a testament to that. So, since the personal experiences are often tied to political issues, what political issues hits home for you the closest?
Yeah, certainly healthcare. As someone who has started a family, is looking to expand my family, the process it felt lonely with me and my wife being, going through that process, the trying to conceive process. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Your insurance doesn't pick it up until you do get pregnant. So that was a journey. It was interesting process that, of course, the first time through, you don't know anything until you go through it. So, healthcare just in general, it's a human right. The fact that we fight and struggle so much for just adequate healthcare, affordable healthcare, that affects everybody. So that's always going to be a big issue. Education. I grew up in the South as well, and my textbooks did not tell me my history, and I had to seek that out myself. And I'm scared in the world that my son's growing up in, like what that means to be a Black person in this world, and having our history erased. It's already been erased and altered and all that. So what they're doing in the schools with education, and they've always underfunded schools, so those things are top of mind for me. And any just economic justices and freedoms that we as Black and brown people in the world deserve. If you don't like reparations, call it back pay. But we absolutely
pay us what you owe us.
Pay us what you owe us. Pay us what we worked for. Like these three things are it's just basic human needs.
That is my answer. The healthcare piece. Like I was thinking about when I was first diagnosed HIV positive, I was so afraid and worried, and I was on my mother's insurance, But then I start to think about if I didn't have insurance, and the medication is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that to me is, like you said, is a basic human right. And so that is such a personal thing to me. Just thinking about my own journey, and I think about so many others who are going through that journey, who may not have access to the healthcare that they need to be able to take care of themselves, or just afraid to explore and find out and investigate what they need. And that's why I'm really happy about that we get to have these kinds of conversations and bring that to people and normalize it, because it's much needed. What about you, Lala?
So I think there's always issues are at my heart, but I think that we're going to always talk about healthcare, but I think for me also it's about people in our community, people, the middle class and that lower end really need real tax breaks. I am sorry. It is time for the rich to pay and the corporations to pay what they owe. We need to preserve our history. All history needs to be preserved. Like white supremacy, it is what it is, and we need to name that's what it is. We need to not try to hide all this racial stuff, trying to make it seem like it didn't exist. It did exist. We need to find a way to use it as a tool to learn from it and how to move away from it as a whole, because even us as people of color, we still hold on to it in ways that's here still. And so like we have a new table, we created it, and then we say, okay, but we don't want these type of black people at the table.
Right.
And it's still patriotic, misogynist, classic, all those things. And so we just embeddedly do those same things. And so those are lessons that we also still have to learn. Preserving access to like books and education in places who didn't get that. Like I said, it's a Midwest, East Coast. It's you go talk to different people, it's different. It's like, wait a minute. And we say, how you didn't know that? Because depending on where you at, they got to control your access of what you need to learn and what you can grasp. And I think that we need to assess what that looks like to make sure we're all moving the needle to be where we need to be. Yeah. And of course, I would also want a ceasefire, and one that does not compromise the people who are suffering from this, and not like a real ceasefire, not saying it, a real one. And understanding that even as we are uncomfortable with it, that none of us is free until we're all free. And as a person who is a part of a oppressed community, who am I to not want to be the oppressor to say, no, you can't come too? It's my duty to find a way for us to find a way for liberation.
Yeah.
Amen.
Right?
Preaching. I yes and all of these things I've said, and that's my answer. I'm kidding. No, I would say the one thing that I would add to this conversation is housing. Housing is so vital for anyone to have a full life and to be able to, conquer all these bigger system issues, whether it is, what's happening to the Palestinian people, to your own health care, to your job status. Having a place that you call your own, that you feel safe and can be yourself in is so vital, and I think everyone deserves that. And we see that when people don't have housing or access to housing, everything goes off the charts. They have higher rates of acquiring HIV, they have higher rates of being surveillance by the police, like all these things happen to them. And I just think housing is something we're seeing that just so many people, even I was talking to folks here today, like people in the studio have experienced homelessness in the past few years because of what happened in the pandemic. So I think all of us are always on the edge of losing our house. Yeah. And if we lived in a world where we didn't have that creep of fear of losing that, I think we'd all be living even bigger lives than we already have. So I think it could be really amazing to have.
Yeah, that is something that a lot of people worry about, especially with, I feel like cross industries, it's just like there's no security anymore. Everything feels unstable and shaky and turbulent.
Because they want everything's gonna be a machine, replaced by a machine. So it's like, move out the way. I think I was at the grocery store the other day and I was like seeing like how no one was there, and it was a time I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool, but now it's like, no, like that's someone's job. Like someone could be here getting paid to feed their family, to not have to keep scanning this because it's not working. Like, no, we need to bring back people power. I think everyone is trying to replace it with, we need to get back to letting people be back in the industry and back in what they do. I hate when I go places like, oh my gosh, let me leave out
Do
of
with
here.
the computer.
There's no person here. Let me go.
Yeah, I mean, that's like,
Well, it's removing humanity.
Yeah.
it is. I mean, that's when
Yeah.
you were asking us about bills. Everything you asked us, I thought about the job first. Like, are they getting
Yeah.
paid well? Like, really well? Like, is this
Right.
chef making a ton of money working at the house? If I'm taking planes everywhere I'm going, are they making a ton of money? Can they get housing off of this?
Right.
I think underneath it all, we got to take care of people, each other, no
Yeah.
matter what we choose. And so.
Well, thank you all for sharing this space
Thank
with
you
me
for
today.
having
me.
I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know it's going to have an impact for everyone who listens to it. But speaking of impact, how can people find out more about your impact and what you have going on? Where can people find you? Whatever you would like to share, please do.
I'm Zach again. I keep looking to this camera. I hope it's on. You can find me on Instagram at Zach Staff. I do a podcast that's in the Marvel universe of your podcast.
A lovely
Like
podcast.
it's called Vibe Check.
Yeah.
So support Black queer podcasters. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Kris. You can follow me on IG at kris.chess. And I host a podcast with my friend Shayna. It's called the Bad Queers Podcast. You can follow us on IG at Bad Queers Pod. We have great conversation for folks who came out of the closet and got put into a box of stereotypes. So our conversations are all about centering Black queer voices and anyone that doesn't fit into the traditional queer mold, you know? So we have a good time and tune in.
Yes.
And I'm Lala Zannell. You can follow me at Goddess Queen Sister on TikTok and Instagram. And you can go to ACLU.org to look for all your voting day and voting right information. Let's get out there and get this deal done. Let's get it done.
Yes. And on that note, that is all the time we have today. This miniseries is brought to you in partnership with GLAAD. And part 2 of The Personal is Political will focus on youth involvement in politics. And you definitely don't want to miss that. If you enjoyed this part 1, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.